Welcome to Pulse of Culture. I'm Karolina Szapland. The Polish Christmas Eve feast with its 12 dishes of carp, sauerkraut, wild mushrooms, poppy seeds is the eternal heart of the nation's holiday season. There are other customs too, such as leaving an empty seat for an unexpected guest or putting hay under the tablecloth, just to mention the few. Joining us on this episode of Pulse of Culture to discuss Polish Christmas tradition is Amudena Rutkowska, an anthropologist from Warsaw's Ethnographic Museum. Amudena, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me here.
To start, could you explain to our viewers what makes Polish Christmas customs so special, so unique, different from the other parts of the world?
Of course, there are many regional differences, but there are few things that are common. And maybe one of the most popular when you think about the Polish Christmas Eve is the bread that is shared between people, the type of wafer that we share between the guests at the beginning of the Christmas Eve. It is made from flour and water, so very simple, and it's similar to the bread that you have during the Holy Communion, during the Holy Mass, in the church service. But it has a different meaning because it's not that sacred as the communion. It has rather a symbolic meaning of the solidarity between people, between the family. And the importance of it is also that you share wishes between each other. So this is just a symbol, not a body of Christ as it is in the church.
But a symbol.
But it's just a symbol.
So if the wafer or if the bread is a thing that unites all of the Poles, are there any special regional traditions, something that you feel we should know more of?
Of course, for example, it is always said that the caroling, going from house to house, happens on the second day of Christmas, so St. Stephen's Day. But it's not true, and in every region, it's a little bit different. So there is, for example, a region in the north of Poland, the Kashubian region, when something like that happens during Christmas Eve, which is very uncommon. Normally, you don't go from house to house on Christmas Eve. You stay at home with your family. So this is quite unique. And people from the village over there, they just put it. This is also something quite different. They put masks on. Okay. So it is a kind of masquerade during Christmas Eve. Normally, people don't do it. They wait till the time when other, let's say, celebration comes, like New Year's Eve or the Three Magi Day. But here it happens on that Christmas Eve, so the people that are there cannot participate in their own Christmas Eve and the supper and so on. So they kind of sacrifice a little bit.
The community. And these masks, what are they like? Could you describe them?
So there are very, very different masks, but generally there's, of course, there are a few, let's say, characters related to Christmas. So there's, for example, even a Santa Claus. But there are animals, for example, the goat or the bear, which are common, in fact, if you talk about caroling and masquerades in Poland and all over Europe. There are specific, let's say, characters that are always within that period of at the beginning of it starts at the beginning of December. It ends at the beginning of Carnival, so the Epiphany. So there are animals. There are also angels, devils. Characters related somehow to the Nativity scene also. So what you see at the Nativity scene sometimes in Poland, you can also see in between carolers and what they wear.
So we have carolers who sing, but what about decorations? Because we all take Christmas tree for granted. Is this an ancient Polish tradition?
No, it's not. Of course it's not, although maybe somebody will be disappointed, but it's not. Even it is not so ancient because it came to Poland, well, in fact, around 18th century. And at first it was seen as something very weird and very un-Polish, I may say, because it came from in fact, from Germany. So some people considered it even unpatriotic to put this Christmas tree in your house.
So what was before Christmas tree? Were there any special the things like pająki? Could you describe the traditional decorations?
Yes, the decorations were quite different and very colorful. There's of course this pająki thing that you said, which means the spider, but in fact it's a little bit kind of well, maybe it's similar to the shape of spider to somebody, but yes, it was made from hay, from straw, generally from things that you could see and have around your house. Yes, rather from coming from nature. There were also nuts, apples, everything that you could put there on it. But there were also pieces of it was not a Christmas Eve tree as it is now, but it was still a green piece of, let's say, a green tree that you could find somewhere around. So the tree that, for example, it was spruce or pine, and it was hanged under the ceiling. This was a big difference from what we have now. And it was called podłaźnik or podłaźniczka.
So podłaźnik or podłaźniczka. I was quite surprised that these old traditional crafts, you can see them, finding their resurgence on TikTok or Instagram. Are there any new traditions, maybe things that link with the fact we now home over 1.8 million of Ukrainians in Poland? Are there any fusion new traditions?
Well, maybe first thing that we can say that the date could be different, the date of the Christmas Eve, because we have it, we celebrate it on the 24th of December. But if you consider it more Orthodox tradition, then you have it in January. So depending on whether you're coming from which let's say wing of Christianity, it also kind of changes the day. So sometimes people celebrate it 2 days not in a row exactly, but within 2 months. So some celebrate it on December, but also in January. So in fact, they have more Christmas than usual.
So that's certainly a new idea. Yeah. Are there any other new traditions, maybe new dishes, any new decorations, things that are a fusion of Polish and Ukrainian customs? Okay,
so for example, in Ukraine, they really are into if we talk about decorations, they have this, they are very fond of decorations made of straw. So it is even called the straw gardens that you could hang also under the ceiling. So there are many, the decorations on Christmas Eve are somehow related to that straw tradition, but also, of course, the Christmas Eve changes because the time changes. So you have a lot of things that are not anymore related to. They are related to modern world. So you have the decorations made, the Christmas tree decorations, for example, made from plastic. From even you can become a collector of Christmas decorations. So they are not. Of course, they are fans of glass decorations, which are still popular, and they are made by hand, in fact. Yeah. Yes. Even some of this tradition, but from Czech Republic, not from Poland, but it's almost the same, was inscribed into the UNESCO list of the intangible heritage of humanity. The glass
bubbles, yes. And of course the Krakow Nativity scenes, the cribs or szopki, they are also listed on the UNESCO heritage.
Yeah, and this is quite interesting because here you have the modern world within the crib, because it is very common and very, in fact, it is even a must that you should put something referring to what happened during that year. Yeah. That is ending. So there are references to some celebrities that were famous during that year, for example, or some events. So it's not always about the tradition, about the history,
or about the fusion.
Yes, but what is happening right now. So I even talked to one of the makers of the crepes, and he said that he had an idea of putting some even political scenes in it, but he was rejected because
that's a step
too much.
far.
Yeah.
But well, take us on a time travel trip. If we were to travel, let's say 200 years back in time, what Christmas traditions in Poland would surprise us the most? Something that's no longer we can see now.
Okay, so for example, we have to imagine that, I mean, even within one region, there were very big differences in between the wealth of people. Yes, so you could have a house where you have, for example, a noble house, yes, where you have those 12 dishes and a lot of decorations. But you could have also a house of a peasant when you just have almost nothing. So you have to, when we're looking at in the original tradition, you have to say that you have to take into account that there were many differences because of the state of wealth of people. So
if you were to choose just one tradition that completely died out, what would that be?
So for example, okay, maybe it didn't die out because I still somehow I saw it once still, but this is maybe not something that we should be proud of, but there is this tradition that the first person that comes during Christmas Eve or even the Christmas Day, depending on who is it, this will bring you bad luck or good luck.
Okay.
And for example, when a woman came, it didn't mean good luck. So,
oh dear. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that that no
it almost died
yeah.
out. But yes, there are some specific traditions that still somehow. I as an anthropologist don't look at the tradition that in the sense of somehow judging it.
Yeah.
But here I may say that I find it confusing if it's still happening. So. But this is a tradition that is kind of a little bit dead almost now.
Tradition that to many foreigners is quite surprising is Polish insistence on eating carp. Carp, the fish that famously somewhat taste a little bit of mud. But of course in Poland we say, well, that is an ancient tradition. Is that so?
No, it's not. I mean, there was carp on the table even later, even earlier, but it wasn't so popular. In fact, it started its popularity after the Second World War in the 50s, in the 60s, where the, how to call it, but it was a mass production of that kind of fish. So you have to put it somewhere.
So it was simply a very cheap fish.
Yes, and it was cheap. So there was a lot of we could say that it was a kind of PR done by even the government at the time. Please eat carp. We were talking about traditions that are already dead, that they're still alive, that are new. But one thing that we said at the beginning, this plate for an unexpected guest. Maybe I would say a few things about it, because it is thought to be a plate for an unexpected guest, but in fact it comes from in more ancient times, from the superstitions that were even before Christianity during that day, because it's the day, that day is also specific because it is the day of winter solstice.
So we have
there were many beliefs related to the connection with the other world, and the last, I think, thing that is left still from that time is that kind of
the last pagan tradition,
because it's not for the unexpected guests, in fact, but for the dead.
Oh, I see.
Ancestors.
Well, we need to stop there on this rather ominous ending.
No, but it was a happy thing.
It's happy because we invite
people
them
believe
in.
that the ancestors came. And we could share it with what we have on the plate, on our table, with them. So it was a happy moment for people.
Amudena Rutkowska, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your passion for Christmas traditions with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that was our Christmas Pulse of Culture. I'm Karolina Shapland, and thank you for watching.